All right, and welcome to This is Podcasting. I'm Connor, and I'm here as always with Calvin.
Hey.
And we have McKinnon on again.
What's up?
And we're doing another spoiler-free review on The Northman. So this just kind of be our quick initial thoughts, kind of a quick synopsis of the movie. So it's basically the story of a boy. His father is killed, and he, vows to have revenge on the person who took his kingdom and his family from him. And that's pretty clear from the trailer. Like, that's not even a spoiler. It's kind of what the whole trailer revolves around.
Yeah, I feel like kind of ironic that we're talking about a spoiler-free synopsis of this story when really this story is the inspiration for the play Hamlet.
Right.
So it was funny. Our friend Blake mentioned, like, yeah, that's all the world needs is another Hamlet. I'm like,
of course.
no, we're going to the source.
Yes. So it basically is just kind of a roundabout journey that he goes on. He grows up, becomes a berserker, and then realizes his fate is to, ultimately go and avenge his father and save his mother and kill the man who took all this from him. And that's basically what the story is. It's not as deep, it's not as meditative, it's not as psychological as Robert Eggers' other films, which would be The Witch and The Lighthouse. It's kind of just exactly what you think it is, and it goes pretty much how you think it's going to go. It's not a lot of twists and turns to this, but McKenna, what's your first impression of The Northman?
Yeah, I would describe this movie as mind-numbing. It's a good movie to put you to sleep, is kind of how I felt about it. It was very boring.
Yeah, if you wanted nightmares.
Maybe I do. I live in the darkness. Yeah, no, Robert Eggers did much more thought-provoking movies than this, so I was not terribly impressed.
Right. Calvin, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I thought the first time I saw this that it was full of symbols that I just didn't understand, that were kind of incoherent. The second time through, it's all just foreshadowing. It's telling you exactly what everything is. But on top of that, none of the characters are interesting, which I find so strange. Like, it's a very good story. It's told at a quick pace. Even though it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, we move through a lot of plot points and don't let anything really breathe. But there's a lot of violence, a lot of cool photography. But overall, it's just Hamlet.
Yeah. No, it's certainly competently made. It looks great. It has some really good continuous shots. But yeah, it all feels like kind of in the service of a really simple story. So yeah, that would be kind of my issue with it too. Just going into it after seeing The Witch and The Lighthouse. I mean, we did multi-part reviews on those films. This will be a one-parter, just a pretty easy one to get through, just because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of
there's not a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's not a lot of substance in this movie. It's really just this story of kind of revenge.
Yeah,
and there's a through line of a theme of fate throughout it.
Yeah, and I think when we say substance, we really mean more like theme and symbol, because if you wanted to talk about substance, you would get into things that we are unfamiliar with. His attention to period detail in terms of construction for those houses, clothing, accents, all of that type of stuff, like the actual politics of the region of the time. That's something that I know he's taken great lengths to be sure is accurate, but that's different than everything else that he's done in his movies. He's made all of those things really, really good, but he's also made something captivating that's a good story, ends with weird psychological expression, and yeah, we don't really have that here. We kind of have psychological expression, but it's not really, because it's just the end of what he was fated to do, which was stated in the first 10 minutes.
Right. And I think that there's some hints that, because I like to view this movie more as the building of his own mythology. This is his myth, and it kind of hints that maybe some stuff is real and some stuff isn't, but it's not explored enough, and it doesn't play a big enough role in the narrative structure of the movie for me to continue to watch each scene and be like, oh, was this real? Was this not real? Is this part of his myth? Is this not? I think you needed to amp that up a little bit more to maybe grab something else from it on a second viewing. The same way The Witch and The Lighthouse, I feel like I get something out of it every time I watch it, or I realize something new. The second time watching this movie, I was like, okay, it's kind of just what I thought. Again, I maybe have more of an appreciation for it because I don't have these same lofty expectations because it's Robert Eggers and I've loved his other films. So to just go into it the second time and be like, I'll just sit and enjoy it, I think it worked better in that way, but I certainly wasn't unpacking more the second time I went through it.
So when I go see this my second time, you guys don't think I'll get anything more out of it?
I think you'll get a better appreciation for it, because that's what happened to me on my second time. It's okay, none of this, like I was saying, none of this really means anything. So let's focus on the words and all of the construction of the story and how all of those things relate together. It's a good story. It's a compelling story, but only really if you're into Shakespearean and Greek tragedies, these types of things that are. I just don't have a great understanding of what makes them compelling, other than that there's just very old stories that everything gets based off of.
Yeah.
Our mode of storytelling now is all about character development and tying themes, like fates and gods and things like that are very different than how we like to tell stories, especially in movies.
Right. I think the other issue I have with this movie is the characters they always do exactly what they're supposed to do, what's expected. There's no like real big twist or turn in this. There's no real challenge to this fate that's like put ahead of your main character here. And that's kind of the issue to me. It's like it all just unfolds exactly how I expected, which I think is fine.
Yeah.
But if I have like just higher expectations from this director, I guess is part of my issue with it.
I think, isn't that how a mythology story is supposed to be? Like, we all kind of know how any given mythology plays out because they all kind of follow a similar formula. So isn't this supposed to play out the way you envision it in your mind without twists, as you would say?
We don't necessarily need it to be twists, though. Mm-hmm. That's what why archetypes work the way that they do, and especially why Robert Eggers uses archetypes, heroes, mothers, all of those types of things. Is because they have their characters and their roles that everyone understands without being told what they are. So then, how you use those to express what's going on inside of each character's minds, it's a lot easier for you to get your point across, because this is the role that they fit, and how they deal with their role can be expressed in terms of the tension between other characters, between their expectations of those roles. But I think like the what you're really going to come away with from this movie is how you like the idea of fate, and how you like the idea of fate to be explored, because this is neither a story where the characters understand that they're just pieces in a fated and deterministic universe, or a story about creating fate for yourself. It's a story about forgetting you have a fate, being reminded, and suddenly compelled to act on it.
Right.
And there's no meditation on the nature of fate itself, or why you even have to do anything with fate. I think that's our problem with this movie, is the insistence on fate is lost on a generation that doesn't care.
Right. Well, I think part of it is the characters just keep saying fate over and over again, but I don't really understand the meaning. Like, why is it so important? But it's just repeated over and over again. But like I said, like that's part of like the lack of substance, I think, behind that theme in the movie.
You're told that this is fate without being told why.
Yeah.
Or what fate is.
Yeah.
Like what does fate even mean in a world where you're just going killing and conquering people? Like, he doesn't necessarily need to do anything, because he's just moved on. Everybody has really moved on. He's lost his king. Or Fjolnir's the brother who kills.
Spoilers.
That's in the synopsis.
It's in the trailer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the entire trailer is the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a good point. Recognizing that there's not a reason for the fate or what the fate represents is definitely important.
yeah, so I would have wanted commentary on that idea, like why fate is even matters. I would feel like there would be a lot of the other characters would just look at him like, what are you talking about? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Your life has moved on, and what you do now it will have no bearing on anything.
So I have another question. I think the way the trailer makes this look is like really action-packed movie. And we actually, Calvin, I was talking with your sister when we saw this, and she was like, I love Troy. Like, I'm a big fan of 300. Like, I should like this. And we were like, it's Robert Eggers, so probably like not. But this movie, I think it doesn't operate, it's not compelling in the way an action movie is, but it's also, like we've said, it's not psychological in the way that it could keep you interested. Does it lean one way or the other to you guys? Does it like land somewhere nicely in the middle? Or do those two pieces like never seem to like coexist together for you?
For me, what I would say is that I think this is a deep, meditative piece of inner turmoil that groans under the expectation of commercial enterprise.
Okay, yeah.
Everything that feels like that I feel like is too fast is because it needs to be an action movie, and everything that that someone else would say like, well, nothing's really happening here is what the director's true vision was, because those are things that I've read. That's that the studio wanted that action adventure movie, and Robert Eggers wanted something slow and meditative, just like the other things that he had done. And so this is what we get. Neither.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. What do you think, McKinnon?
I don't think anything, man. It was just so boring. Are you asking if we would have liked it be more leaning into the action or less?
I think the movie does better if it does one or the other. It needs to either be like more psychological and more meditative like his other films, or he tries something totally new and makes a more action-packed movie.
See, that's interesting to me because it really seemed like there was an attempt at the psychological because it was layered so much in like symbolisms and metaphors, but like just none of them landed for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
think
felt like
it's 'cause
there were
they're-
a lot there.
Yeah, they're there, but they're just not explored. That's
the surface level that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like they're just kind of thrown there just to give the experience of Viking mythology. That's all it is. They don't actually relate back to the theme. They're just oh, here's a seer or a witch telling someone to do this thing that they have to do because fate exists.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's like, or you have a statue of Odin or a gold token. They're symbols for sure,
Yeah.
but they don't mean anything.
Right. It seemed like half the characters' lines were meant to be metaphors, but they didn't actually like turn into anything.
Well, I think that's part of how the screenplay was written. It was actually written with Robert Eggers wrote it with an Icelandic poet. His name is Hrun, I think. But yeah, that's why a lot of it actually is written like poetry, because it's the inspiration. It was a saga. It was the inspiration for Hamlet, and they bring it to this movie in certain places, which is weird because it doesn't always fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some really pretty lines in the movie.
There's also some really dumb ones,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
Yes.
I would rather have had Alexander Skarsgård's character never say anything, because I don't think he says anything particularly interesting. He's hunched like a bear. He's supposed to be a beast.
I like that. That's a cool idea.
Yeah,
His traps are huge in this movie.
I know. Yeah,
He's
exactly.
absolutely built.
Yeah. Speaking of groaning under the weight of commercial enterprise, those neck muscles.
Yeah. All right, so I think we're going to wrap this one up now. On a scale of 1 to 10 teardrops, McKinnon, what do you give this?
5.5.
Wow, okay.
I get that there were certain ideas and concepts that they were going for with this movie, so I give it points for that. And we didn't talk about it, but it's a very beautiful movie.
I feel like you can just set up a camera in Iceland and it's
Maybe
cinematically it's going to look great.
There
Like,
were
I could
some-
pull that off, I think.
There were some shots with like people walking in like the countryside that seemed like intentionally done to look very pretty. And
Yeah.
I was like, I like this a lot. But the rest of it didn't land for me, so 5.5.
Okay. Calvin, what do you think of this one?
I think it's really, you can see the love for it, and I don't want to discount the butchering that a studio does to something that's a good piece. You know, I think this is a really good movie, and if they had just let him alone, it would have been another true Robert Eggers classic. And so I feel like, it's just he's just torn in the wrong direction. So I think it's really good. I can see where its heart is, but it's nowhere near the level of his other movies. So for me, it's a 7.1.
Oh, okay, that's actually higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Yeah, I can see a lot of like how he shoots things is so difficult.
Right.
So
Do you think if Robert Eggers was left to his own devices, this movie could have been better than Lighthouse?
oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. Because he starts all of these things with great execution of small ideas, and then if he keeps getting bigger and bigger and is still executing well, bringing that same level of detail and attention, I think absolutely this could have been, if it's executed to the same degree as his other movies, it's just on a larger scale. It's much harder to do that. So he hasn't proven me wrong yet.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he has proven me wrong right here, but I think so. I think it would have been his best one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I put it at a 6. Once I got past the expectation the first time, having seen it, then I was like, okay, my second go around, I was like, let's just sit and view it as like a general audience. I don't know who Robert Eggers is. I don't love his previous films. I just want to know, how do I feel about this? And it's just fine. It's not a masterpiece like a lot of advertisements out for an hour saying it's like the greatest thing. It's just fine. And I don't think any of the performances are especially great. I certainly don't think any of them are bad. Like you said, it looks pretty. It's really competently made. I think there are some really great shots in it, but it's just fine. So I put it 6 out of 10. But yeah, with that, we'll wrap this up. You can find our podcast on any platform like Apple Music or Spotify. We also upload all these to YouTube. So go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us what we're doing well. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.